All right, so I want to get some input from the user. I want them to give me a number, and I'm going to do some math with this number. So I make a little input box on my website. I can put a little button to act as an event so that they can click it. And now I just need a couple variables. So I want one to hold the number that the user has given me. So I don't know what it's going to equal, so I'll just leave it like that. But I do know to get that number, I have to link to my inputs. So I should I'll give it an ID this time. I'll say input. So I'm going to say let input equals document.query, selector. And because my ID is, because I'm using an ID, I'm going to use a hashtag. So now I can get the user's input through this value, and I can assign it to this number. And I'll do that with a simple on-click. So I'm going to say num is equal to input.value. And just to make sure everything's working, let's just display the value of this variable to the console. So if I put 1 in there, I get a 1 that comes out. All looks fine, but it's not fine. When a user enters, if you've taken computer science, you'll know this. When a user enters a number into a text box, your computer doesn't think it's a number. Your computer thinks it's the word 1. So that's how your computer interprets what this value is. So if you wanted to do math with this number, can you do math with the word 1? No, you can't do any math with it. So for example, let me show you what I mean. Let's say I had a second variable, let's say num2, and maybe I got this number from the user already, yada, yada, yada. But anyways, I've got this second variable. Let's do some simple math with these variables. So I get the number from the user, and let me make a third variable. Let's say math result. Sure, why not? So I'm going to say math results. This variable is going to be equal to the number that the user gave me, and I'm going to plus it. I'm going to add it to this other number that I have stored from elsewhere. Let's see what I get for a result. So just keep in mind, num2 is 10. So let's say the user gives me 100, and when I press enter, it's going to go 100 plus 10. And this is what you get. You get 10,010, which is obviously not the right answer. So what did it do? Well, it added those two variables, but not mathematically. It added them as in putting two words right next to each other. So this was 100 and this was 10, and by adding them, they just jammed these two numbers together. They didn't actually mathematically add them. All we have to do is your input has a type. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, you know what, we don't want text from you. We expect a number in this input. So you're going to treat it like a number so that we can do some math with it. And the second thing you have to do is this input.value. I'm going to need that value as number. That's all you have to do. Now when we get that input from the user, your computer's going to be like, okay, this is a number. This is a number and arithmetic is on the table. We can do some math with it. So now if I try to do a simple addition statement with those two things, let's use 100 again. Press enter. I do get the addition working properly. I get 110. So the moral of the story is if you expect to get any numbers, like actual numbers from the user, it's probably a good idea to change the input type to number and to receive the value as a number. So these two extra things. And I'm going to show you one last quick thing because I don't think this is too hard. Rounding. Let's change our math to division. And instead of using a nice, lovely 10, let's use a really gross number. And even the user is going to give me a gross number, so I'm going to go like, I don't know, 7.8. Oh, it actually worked out pretty nice. Oh, I didn't save it. That's why. 6.7. All right. So let's say I did some math and I get this really nasty number, like 0.1000 decimal places. Quick fix. If you want to round numbers in JavaScript, so for example, this variable right now is holding this nasty number. Like, who the heck needs all those decimal places? What you can do is you can take that variable and you can set it equal to itself, except you can hit it with a very lovely method, very simple. The method is called .toFixed. And how many decimal places do you want? Well, I want 2 decimal places. This is useful if you're working with money, because money is almost always reported to do decimal places, like pennies, cents. So now if I display the result of this variable, I get a much nicer answer. I can't remember what numbers we used, but surely we can get some gross ones again. And we get 0.47. We'll always get 2 decimal places. Which is very nice when we're like displaying this data. So if at some point you wanted to display the results of your math, depending on what program you're making, we would kind of use this as a last step. So you don't have to do this right off the bat, but when you're ready to show the user kind of the data and the numbers, it might be easier to show them a nice, simple 2 decimal number as opposed to 1,000 decimals. Something to keep in mind.